instant kill. You can get the plans that I've put together. I'm saving myself $180. It's really a good idea not to be distracted, you know, like making a YouTube video while you're building it, that kind of thing. That's the language. Hello and welcome back to the Way to Native Chronicles. In this video I'd like to continue on the theme of trapping, and I'd like to show you what they call a Marten box. Not sure how many of you are familiar with this, but this is a box that you can put a conibear trap in and trap animals the size of martens, things like that. And these boxes, you need quite a few of them for trapping, so the cost can add up. I've done a calculation here from a store-bought box of this type. For 14 boxes, it would wind up coming up to about $330. But I'm going to show you how you can make your own for half that price. And this is not just a cheap little rinky-dink box, it's actually a really nice featured one. So I'll show you that in a second. In this video I'm going to make plans available, which I've made myself. Put in quite a bit of work to get all the dimensions right and tested it. I just made this box using those plans yesterday. Works terrific. And the plans will be in PDF format. I'll have an email address presented on the end screen of this video so that you can just fire me off an email and I'll just give you a Google Drive location where to pull them off of. Really simple to make, quite fun, and saves you a lot of money. So without further ado, let's just first cover quickly what a Marten box does, how it works. So basically how a Marten box works is you use it with a conibear trap. Now you can see this one here, I have the springs compressed on it with the safeties on, and I have the trap set. So what you do is you take a box like this and you can slide your conibear set into the box. Now this one sets quite deeply. I've actually dimensioned this box to have a little bit more space around the trap than I've seen in the store-bought models. I want to make sure that the jaws of the trap don't bind as they close and hit the inside edges of the box. So I'm going to be able to set this quite far in like this, but normally I think you would have it, you know, not all the way in. Now, if I want to use this trap, I can just take the safeties off it, and we'll just kind of give you an idea of how this works. I'm not sure if this tube will fit right down here, but it's basically like this. Snap. And the animal is caught in the trap. Instant kill. So that's the basic function of a conibear trap. Okay, now that we've seen how a conibear trap functions, let's take a look at some of the details of the design of this box. Okay, so I haven't shown you the function of the trap. I explained that you don't want the jaws to interfere hitting the inside of the box of the trap, so I've carefully dimensioned it to make it clear that. This is a Belial 120, by the way. In addition to the traps not hitting the inside of the box, you also don't want to have the box so wide that it interferes with the placement of your safeties. So that's another consideration. So let's take this trap out of here and take a look at some of the features. First of all, got a little slot. That means you can take a roofing nail or something like that, pound it into a tree or a horizontal log, and slide that nail into the hole here and then move it back and catch it, especially when you have the box suspended upside down like this. So then the weight of the box just holds onto the tree. Another feature that I really like is the way that it has the bait separated from birds coming in on one end to eat it all up, and the animals getting in through this end to eat it up. So you can see here we have screen here, and we have screen over here too. So you put your bait in this container here, very simple closure. Just pull that piece of wire and it stays shut. The plywood that it's made out of is 1/2 inch, and what I've done, I've made plans so that you can get 14 of these boxes out of a single 4x8 sheet of 1/2 inch plywood. And I think that makes it really quite economical. We've got a lot of design details on plans, and again, as I've told you, you can email me. There's an email address at the end of this video. Of course, I appreciate it if you also subscribe to the channel and click like and help support it so that we can do more stuff like this. It really makes a difference. Here is a close-up of the dimensions that you have to make for cutting your plywood, one row of it, and then you have your overall here, right? All enough to make 14 boxes. Have some detail sheets on the construction, on the smaller pieces, and a list of materials so that you can go to the store and come back with everything you need, and even a cost breakdown comparing a store-bought box like this to one that you make yourself, because you have to put in a little bit of work to make these things. So, you know, if you're saving yourself, let's say in the case of these 14 boxes, I'm saving myself $180, so that's not bad at all, and I'm coming up with actually quite a nice Marten box. So let's get into the basic construction of this box. We'll just run you quickly through from end to end, just to show you that it's not really much to it. You don't need any fancy tools and not a lot of materials to make it either. Okay, let's move on to the stage of transferring our dimensions onto a board. So what I have here is a 1 foot wide strip of this original 4x8 sheet of 1/2 inch plywood. So it's best to do this in 1 inch pieces, because if you notice the pattern kind of alternates a lot and zigzags around, but a single row works quite well. And when we have a little close-up on this piece of plywood, you'll see some old pencil lines on it, and quite frankly that I went through this process of designing and redimensioning and working on the plans more times than I care to tell you. The idea was to not only have the box large enough to fit the jaws of 120 conibear trap, but also to use up the pieces of plywood as efficiently as possible. So there were a number of iterations that I went through that I managed to fit it on, but then the trap wouldn't fit inside. So there was a lot of tweaking that went into this. I just want you to appreciate that fact. Man, I went through a lot of iterations on this. But I now have a really solid design, if you don't mind myself saying so. And what we're going to do is we're going to use these plans. This is the Marten box sides detail sheet. And the way I've dimensioned it is in a way that, for me, and I think for anybody, works the easiest when you're trying to mark off a lot of different dimensions. I just start from the 0 point, where I can have a 0 point on my ruler, and on this sheet it's every inch mark all the way down on one side, and on the other side I can even flip the box around this way because it's perfectly symmetrical. This design fills up the entire 4 foot width of the sheet, so I can take my sheet and then, looking at the bottom dimensions on the bottom row, I can make the marks there, and then I can just take a ruler and connect the dots. So get this part of it out of the way, and then we can get on to cutting this stuff. Okay, let's start here. I'm going to take this sheet here, referencing that, and I'll take my ruler along the one side, and the first dimension I have is 8 1/4. Second one is 13 1/4. The third one is 21 1/2. This makes it very easy when you can just have your mark off points all the way down. And now, flipping it around, let's do the bottom side. The bottom side, take a look here, and I'm looking at this row here, and I want to start off with 1 inch. Get this ruler the right way around. 1 inch. And 7 1/4. 14 1/4. And 20 1/2. And now, with our ticks made, we just have to line things up here a little bit to connect the dots. Right, so this one here, we're going to take it from this tick to the corner. And so we do it like that. There we go. And then let's take another one here. There. There. That should do it. You can see we're getting our pattern laid in here. And this one can come from there to there. Let's just get these guys lined up nicely. There we go. So, and we just proceed along just like that. Now I have the piece of plywood marked up, the lines drawn in. Let's go and cut these pieces out. What I'm going to do is just use a circular saw. You can make cuts that are very accurate if you're careful doing it that way. So again, as I said before, no fancy expensive tools. Let's cut up these boards. I'm going to take this skill saw, have it adjusted so that it doesn't cut too far deep. You probably used a skill saw before anyways, but just in case you need to know, that's a good thing to do. And we'll just go at her here. When I do this, I have a mark here that I can use to put just on the inside of that line, and as long as I get it lined up with that mark on the front and get the blade touching at the beginning point where I want, then once I got her set aligned, then I can just run her right through and get a perfect cut. So let's see how this is done here. Just make sure there's nothing underneath your board that you don't want to cut into. she goes. That's right on the line. Yeah, right on the line. That came off like that. So, perfect. Well, I have all these pieces cut out now, and what I'll do is, next I'm going to take the 2.5 inches off the narrow ends of each piece, because I'm going to have that apart in order to construct the little caged box for the bait. So I think the way I'll go about it is I'm going to make my line on one of these pieces and on one of these pieces, and then I'll just use them as templates for marking the rest. Cut these up, should be pretty quick work. So let's get started on that. Try to get these accurate because it's going to form the template for all the others that I cut. Okay, let's see, that's should be good. Yeah, I think that's good. Now let's get this guy here. Two and a half. This. Okay. There we go. Now let's do some cutting. Let's get this as accurate as we can. Boy, you know, I could have done that a little bit better. Just because I'm going to make it for the hopefully that's a little better. Let's get this guy too. Not too bad. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these things matched to each other. So marking on the rough side, I'm just going to give them each a number, and that way I can have the grains match when I put it together. This is not fine furniture we're making or anything like that, but you know, might as well do it right. So, got a little number to match these guys up in case they get jumbled around later on. And we'll move on to the next step. Match that up. And I'll get my lines cut. This. So, nothing to it. Well, I've got all these sides cut out now. Let's bring this into the house. Put these boxes together. Let's continue now with making some of the detail cuts on these Marten box sides. What I'm going to do is, referring to this detail sheet, I'm going to start off with making the little slot that we use to hang the box by nail. So that's going to involve drilling a 1/2 inch diameter hole and then a 3/16 inch wide slot in the side of the box. Now, just caution you on one thing: when you're doing this type of stuff, it's really a good idea not to be distracted, you know, like making a YouTube video while you're building it, that kind of thing. Because it's pretty easy to just accidentally pick up the wrong side and make your cut in the wrong side. I haven't done it yet, but it's real easy to do. So for this one here, for that nail slot, I'm going to have to be using the wide part, because there are two different types of sides to these boxes, right? So let's just get the ones that we're not working on, just get them right out of the way, and then that way I can't accidentally mark up the wrong side here. Okay, referring to the detail sheet, I'm gonna want to have a halfway mark on this. So let's see here. Let's get that marked off to here, and as I did with cutting off the bait box ends, I'm gonna make one of these for each side and use that as a template for making the others, so I can just trace this on, so I won't have to measure this on every time I do it. So here we got our 4-inch mark. This one doesn't have to be made super precise like this one cutting the sides, but of course, you want to do a job, you might as well do it well, right? So got my line lightly in there, and it looks like I'm going to need 3 3/4 from the bottom and 3 3/4 for the slot. So let's mark off those guys. Three and 3/4. 3 3/4. Okay. I guess I should have extended this line a little further. Let's see where we're going here. Okay, good enough. So, now we got these two marks here to start and end it. And I want to make sure I have the hole drilled in here. It's a good idea to have the plans printed out and sitting right next to you when you do this, because you could easily make the mistake of putting the hole here by accident, and that's not really what you want, because you want the box to hang down on its weight on the tree, so you've got to get the head of the screw through there. Now for the 3/16 wide slot, well, that's kind of guesswork, eh? Because 3/16 puts me right about there. I don't want to make it too wide. You don't want the head of the screw to come through, but we'll get her in as close as we can. Let's see, something like that, I guess. And one over here. I'm just eyeball it in. Because really, what we're going to do here is going to be using a jigsaw to cut this little slot here. First, I'm going to drill a hole, and when I get the hole drilled, then I'll have enough room to get the jigsaw in there and just cut ahead and cut that slot nicely. Okay, let's make the 1/2 inch hole here first. I'm just going to mark the center point of that hole so the drill bit doesn't skip around, and we'll go at it. sure I don't get the side of my table. Okay, now I'm not going to go all the way through in one shot. Just want to get so I have the hole coming through this side. Because if I do it all in one straight push, then it's going to splinter coming out the other side, right? So. There we go. Nice clean hole. Okay, so let's see here. Let's get this slot cut. Now with a jigsaw, when you're setting it up, you have your adjustments for the aggressiveness of the cut. So just keep that in mind. So I've got it set for a plywood type of cut. If it's set too coarse, it'll chomp so much that it'll splinter the plywood. If it's not set enough, then it hardly gets through anything. So about on the number 2 setting on this jigsaw should do the trick. Okay, let's see if we can do this. For these slots, the lines that I do, I'm cutting just onto the inside of them, because I don't want this slot to be too wide. If it's too wide, then the head of the nail might slide through. There, that looks not too bad. Could have maybe made the lines a little darker. You lose them pretty easy once you start cutting like that, but I think that's a pretty good job. And slide the nail through there. It's not perfectly centered, I guess, but no, doesn't matter in the case of this. So now let's move on to making the slot for the springs of the conibear trap to slide through. Now, being careful again that you choose the right piece. Not that wide piece, but these are the 2 side pieces that are a little bit narrower. And be sure that you start from the right end. And this may sound like overemphasizing it, but really it is very easy to just accidentally, in your concentration of drawing dimensions and stuff, just to draw things on the wrong end, and then, well, then you really screwed it up. Especially if you're making multiple traps and then find out at the end that you did it all wrong. So got to get this slot in the right place. So let's do that. I'm going to take a halfway measurement on the width here. This one I want to make it fairly accurate, because if you have this slot out of center by too much, then you're going to have a trap that the jaws might contact the sides of the box when you slide it in there. You want to have that little bit of clearance, because there's not a whole lot of clearance on these. Okay, let's get this thing here. Use this as my T-square. Should be right. There's my center line. And I want this to be a 1/2 inch wide slot, so let's make it a 1/4 on each side. 1/4 here, 1/4 there, and then 1/4 here and there. Okay, so let's get lines drawn on this too. Just a little bit in. There we go. I'm going to make these lines a bit dark, because that jigsaw tends to obscure things. There we go. So we got a hole here. I guess I can mark off the 1/4 inch mark here for the center of the drill too. And we'll get a little dent started here. Center of that drill. Okay, let's drill another hole now. Just like we did last time, same 1/2 inch bit. There we go. Okay, now get that hole done, and it's a good idea to have done the hole first because it's really hard to get it exactly where you want. This way I can, when I'm cutting with a jigsaw, I can alter the course of the jigsaw just a bit so I beat in with the tangents of the hole here. So let's just go right ahead and do that now. See if I can do this without screwing it up, eh? Notice this time I put the camera where my head won't be in the way. Yeah, that's pretty close. What do you think? Will that pass? I think that'll do. Hey, now we have these two pieces made, and I can trace them onto the other side pieces and make patterns, and just, it's all repetition from here getting this part done. So we'll get that finished up and I'll get back to you on the other details of this box. Well, we're finished with the cutting phase now, so we can proceed on to the assembly phase. And that's the part that I like best. Looking forward to getting a bunch of these boxes made like this. It's very satisfying work, actually. A nice, simple project. There's still lots of ways to screw it up by making mistakes, but as long as you're careful, everything should work pretty copacetic. So let's get on to the task of joining these sides together to make boxes. I'm going to have to do that for the main box, and then I'll have to do that also for the bait box end. And I'll show you how I go about it. So here's the plan. I'm going to join the boxes. The wide part is the part that overlaps over the thinner side, and I'd like to pin these pieces starting with the front corner, and the trick is to get that first joint nice and flush. I'm going to also put some glue on there. The glue I'm using is Tight Bond 3 Ultimate. That's probably the very best wood glue you can get. It's also a glue that's waterproof, so whatever glue you're choosing, you want to keep that in mind, because these traps can be in the outdoors. But when it comes to pinning these sides together, it's a little bit fiddly, but it's not that hard. The way I like to do it is to drill a hole using a 1/16 inch bit, because if you take the nail and you pound it through, you're going to get some splitting in the plywood. So you might as well just bite the bullet and drill your holes for it instead of taking that chance. The type of nails that I'm using are 1 inch panel nails, and that should match up pretty well with the 1/16 inch bit. So let's start by getting a hole through this front corner. And the way I do it is because the thing moves around a lot, sometimes I just take this off and drill the initial hole first and get it all the way through, and then I can get it into the corner piece a lot easier. But we'll try doing this in one shot here first. See how it goes. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Okay, so now we got these two lined up nicely. And actually the part that I like to do initially is to get the nail through the top half first, so that's just starting to spike in there a little bit. Okay, so just starting to bite. Got a little bit of a bite there. And let's take some of this glue and put that, a bead of that on the top here. These Marten houses, they don't have to be built like armored tanks necessarily. I think the combination of wood glue along with 4 nails along each top, that's going to make it plenty strong already. Now, where did I get my, oh, there's my nail. Okay, so let's just get this first part so it meets up with that hole there and there, and pop that in. There we go. Now we can get this other one in place. Use my drill again here. I want to get it right in the middle. Okay. Yeah, if you don't pre-drill the holes, you will get some splitting in the plywood. Trust me on that. So this guy, we can just take it. Beautiful. Okay, let's move on to another side. Now you notice, before I did this, I also picked the smoother side of the plywood. Something to keep in mind if you can. Here we got another one. There's the smooth side out. Not that the Martens really care how pretty it is, but it's, I like to say, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it right. So let's see, that's a pretty good match there. Let's get a pilot hole through here. This one I'm good. This one might be hitting a bit of a knot. Well, looks like we're okay there. Okay, just like the other one, I'm going to start a nail through there, because otherwise it's hard to tell when you're connecting with the nail on the other side. And we'll get a little bit of glue on here. Let's see, where was I on this guy? There's my pilot hole. Okay. There we go. Put this guy together. No fancy jigs or anything involved. Beauty. Now let's get a pilot hole on this side. I'm going to be adding more nails in between later once I get it all pinned together. But for now, we'll just get all the sides together. Now, one thing when you're drilling with a 1/16 inch bit like this, don't apply too much pressure. These are very thin pieces of drill and they can break very easily. So just gently push. Don't overdo it in your haste. Because otherwise, before you're done a few of these, you're going to run out of 1/16 inch drill bits. You don't have to ask me how I know that. I like these panel nails. They got a bit of ribbing on them. And coupled with a 1/16 inch bit, they're just a perfect fit. So now we're on to another one here. Just to show you how easy it is. I mean, this is really satisfying work, satisfying phase of the project. Now, let's see here. Okay, let's get another nail in here. And as I did before, we'll put this aside for a second and I'll get a nail started through here. I sometimes think about doing this as a project for money to sell these. Still not sure if I want to do that because, you know, when you do stuff as a hobby, it's fun, but if you start doing it too much, then it sometimes ends up not being fun anymore. So I'm kind of reluctant. I think I've already had people ask me if I can make them a bunch, and I am reluctant to say yes. But at the same time, it is also tempting, because you could make a few bucks doing this, and you know, anybody watching this might be thinking the same thing too, right? As I said, I showed you the cost breakdown on these boxes, and you can do it for about half the price that it would cost to buy a Marten box from a store. So as long as you're selling direct to customer and no store taking a profit margin off, I suppose you could make a go of it. I'm getting glue squishing out the edges there. I've got a little bowl with water and a paper towel that I'm going to use to wipe off the excess glue later before it hardens. Wood glue wipes off quite nicely. Okay, I think I got a good fit here. Now this guy, just gonna, oh boy, I guess I made a mistake, didn't I? I should have glued both sides here. Well, that's okay. I can get a bead of glue through here easy enough. Am I sort of changing my technique as I go along here? I think so, eh? Well, there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say. There we go. No harm done. Now this guy, now I have to hope with my pounding and stuff that I meet up with that hole underneath, it should be okay. Oh, yeah. There we go. Now let's get the back ends in there. I have to torque it a little bit. That's okay. Yeah, this one's going to need a fair bit of torque, actually. Okay, let's get that through like so. Okay, pop another one in there. Just get started. Okay. Nice. Now this guy's going to want a little bit of twisting too, a fair bit. Let's see. I just push it down like so. Yeah, perfect. I'd recommend you have a few extra 1/16 inch bits with you when you're doing this, just so that partway through, if you do break a bit, you don't have to stop everything you're doing and go run down to a hardware store. Okay. Let's see here. I think I went too far here. Okay. Boy, I gotta press this guy together pretty good. There we go. Nothing to it. Okay, so I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna put another nail here, there, and there. Get this thing finished up and wipe the excess glue off. It takes 24 nails per box. You got 4, 6, 12, 24 per box. So if you're doing 17 of these muskrat boxes, a full 4x8 sheet, I estimate you'd need between 325 and 350 of these nails, just so you know how much to buy. Get this part here finished up and then we're going to move on to the next step. Now we begin the phase of making the bait box ends. I think this is worthwhile including in the video because there are some aspects to it that are worth paying attention to. One of them being that now is the time to make sure you got your grain right, because remember I marked off these blocks of wood when I cut them off earlier so I could match them up. So I have my pieces all sitting here ready to go, and I have it kind of figured out that it's going to go this way and this one's going to just go on top like so. Pretty straightforward, but not a bad idea to think it out a little bit before you start drilling holes and gluing and pounding. The other thing that I would suggest is that when you're putting these boxes together, the inside pieces may be more indented than the top flat pieces, so you have more hangover there, but it's not necessarily the case. So this is not high precision work, but I think when it comes to attaching the screen onto the back of the box, I don't have a perfect match here when it comes to the width of these two pieces coming together. But if you're going to match it on one end, I would suggest matching it on the back end of the bait box. So that's what I'm going to do here. Let's take a drill there. So luckily I have some more. Okay, gonna get a nail started on this fella here. There we go. And we'll get a bit of glue on it. There we go. There. Now I can line up this back end. There's one. Now, paying attention to which side belongs with which. I want to have this side to match up with the grain. Okay, let's get this guy joined. There we go. And we'll move on to the next phase from here. Now the next thing to do is to put some screening to enclose the bait sections. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two pieces of screen that I have here. I have a smaller one also for the back piece, and I'm going to attach them to the back of this box. Now, when you're buying this screen material, it might come in big rolls. So this stuff in particular, maybe it's not everyone's favorite, but it works. It's dense enough and cuts easily enough. You just have to use some tin snips, right? But when you're cutting it out, it might be helpful to just make a pattern of the back of the box, maybe slightly smaller than the back of the box, and then lay that over your screen when you're doing your cutting around it. So anyways, do your best, try to get it as close to a fit on the back. You don't really want to have too much hanging out the sides, but in the case of mesh like this, if it does hang out, you can kind of tap it down a bit and it embeds into the wood. You can help it out a little bit to make a cleaner job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just demonstrate it with this one here. Get this screen onto the back. By the way, with this diamond shaped screen, if it's a little too narrow or a little too long, you can actually pull it one way or the other to increase the width or the length. But anytime you stretch it one way, it gets shorter than the other way. Okay, let's see here. Let's get this guy right about there. Now this isn't the greatest staple gun I got, but it's good enough. Staples aren't going in all the way, but they're going in far enough so that I can tap them in later. Okay, so I finished popping in these staples, and the edges hanging out. I'm just going to punch those into the wood, because we don't want to have any sharp edges sticking out the sides. I'm going to cut your fingers on them. So just do that on both sides, both this end of the box, and we'll do it on that, and then we'll go on to the next phase. Well, we're getting near the end now. Next step is to put some hinges on this contraption here. There's not much to say about it. You probably put on hinges before, and if you haven't, it's not all that hard to do. Just when you place them, just don't tighten the screws right down as tight as they can go right away. Just get it all hooked together and then tighten it in so it'll give you some alignment. Another thing too is I would have preferred to have one single hinge. The width of this about 4 inches wide, but all I could find is these ones here, so I had to put in 2 hinges. And really, I could, I'm sure, get away with just 1 hinge too, because this doesn't have to be a strong affair here. The other remaining thing is when you're putting in the hinge, I would recommend you put it on one of the sides that has the slot for the conibear spring, because then it's going to be a little more functional in the field. You know, if you get it on a tree or something like that and it's opening up this way, it might open into something that won't allow it to open, or it's better off, I think, having it go to the side. So let's pop these hinges in here quick, and then we'll get on to the very final step of this construction project. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get these things aligned, and I'm going to make punch holes to get the drill bit started. What I'm not going to do is punch the holes for the opposite side, just in case the drill goes one way or the other a little bit. I'll do that after these are set here. So I've gone up to a 3/32 inch bit, and let's see how that works. Oh yeah, that goes in just about right. There we go. Now let's get the front holes placed. Okay, I think I've got these screws in the right place. Okay, we got her more or less in place here. I think that's going to work. There we go. We're getting pretty close to done here, folks. I think we just got to make a little latch on the other side of the hinge location, and I'll put the one screw here and the other screw like right here. So I'm going to run a 3/32 inch drill bit through each. Now we have that. I have some 6 by 1/2 inch screws. And I want to leave this one sticking out a bit so that a piece of mechanics wire can just hook around it. Guess about like that. Now the second one, we're going to want to have a piece of mechanics wire wound around that screw first before I put it in. So to wrap this piece of wire around this screw, just putting it in a set of vice grips for now, and that can hold her while I get the loop tied around it. Fiddly affair, but we'll get her. So now we have our screw ready to go, and we'll pop this screw in here. This one you can tighten right down, of course. There we go. And now we have our basic wire. All we have to do is just give her a little twist around there, and this bait box assembly is now nice and secure. So I think that's just about doing her here. Well, that just about does it for building these Marten boxes. I hope you enjoyed the video and you get some use out of it, and give it a shot yourself. If you like, you can get the plans that I've put together for these. I think they are very good, and it does take a little bit of work to put them together, but you do save some money as you do it as well. So, you know, it's totally up to you. It depends on how handy you are, I guess. I've made this video quite long because I'm sort of inclined to go through all the steps to make sure that people understand how to do things. And if you have followed through this very long video yourself, you'll probably see that in the course of it, I've managed to pass along a few tips as we go on woodworking and things like that. Things that, you know, depending on your initial skill level, could make a big difference. So maybe a lot of you will just get the plans and, you know, that's it, you're good to go. But I think there are some people that would derive some benefit out of having it done step by step, very clearly demonstrating how to do things and where the pitfalls are. Speaking of pitfalls, it's pretty easy to make a little screw up while you're doing these things, and you should have a little contest and put in the comments what your screw up was while you were building these. It's deceptively simple to do this, isn't it? But as you're doing it, you tend to be concentrating on measuring dimensions or whatever, and it's very easy to get something completely upside down or backwards as you're making these. I could share with you a mistake that I made. In fact, one of these, I did what I even warned in the video to people not to do. I cut these slots for the hanging of the nails, and then I took the two sides that had slots cut and I put them both into one Marten box. So, you know, it's not the end of the world, but I had to, I looked at this one here later on, and I realized, shoot, this one doesn't have any slot cut in it, so I had to go at it with a drill and punch one in after the fact, which is not a bad way to go, actually. The only thing is, when you're drilling from just one side, then you can't make a clean cut as you come through. When I'm doing it all in pieces, I can cut from one side and the other. But aside from that, that's maybe not a bad way to do it either. Just kind of build a box and cut in the slots when you're all done. And, well, you know, with these plans, I'm not charging anything for them, but if you do appreciate the work, there's nothing wrong with you sending an e-transfer to me. I won't be offended for what you think the plans are worth, really. Yeah. So, I guess it's time for us to end this video. It's been rather long. Maybe I should come out with a shorter version of it. I could do that and put out a second version of this video with a lot of parts kind of trimmed way back and cut it down to at least half the length. Let me know if you think that's a good idea, if these videos are too long, or, and I've heard this in the past, some people really appreciate the very thorough treatment that I give to some topics as well. So, hard to say what people want. If you liked this video and got something out of it, I encourage you to click subscribe and hit the like button so that YouTube knows, hey, this is the stuff that people like to watch, and they promote it more. From the Way to Native Chronicles, I'd like to wish you God bless, and catch you next time.